This is the most annoying good Pokemon I have ever played in a solo challenge. The reason's pretty simple. If you look at Lickitung's starting moveset, you realize that there is a problem. It begins the game with Lick and Supersonic. That's it. It's a normal type Pokemon, and there are many other normal type Pokemon that I have to face in the early portions of the game. Like, for example, on the starting route, the only 3 Pokemon that can show up are Sentret, Pidgey, and Hoot Hoot, all normal types which take no damage from Lick. I could resort to Supersonic, a move which has 55% accuracy and 20 PP, but because of the inconsistency of the move and confusion, sometimes I will make it through all of these power points without knocking out many Pokemon. But this starting set isn't the only reason that Lickitung is annoyingly good. Its stats, for example, have an interesting distribution: 90 HP, 55 attack, 75 defense, and special defense, 30 speed, and 60 special attack. So it's balanced offensively with a slight bias towards special. It has balanced defenses. It's very bulky in terms of HP, but it has terrible speed. So it's usually going to be moving second. Because this is a HeartGold challenge and it's a first playthrough, I'm going to be evolving my Lickitung throughout the run, and it's also going to have a hardy nature, and I'm not going to be able to use hidden power. I also want to mention that Lickitung's ability choice is another reason that it's kind of annoying to play. It gets either Own Tempo or Oblivious, 2 abilities that aren't very good for solo challenges, especially in Generation 4. I have found in my experience that Confusion is much more prominent in the early generation Pokemon games, and there isn't a lot of it in these games, but Own Tempo still will be the better ability here. Oblivious just prevents infatuation, and I've already done that by making my Lickitung female, since Whitney is the only attract user that I have to go up against. Some small reasons you might believe that Oblivious would be better is that it blocks Intimidate, but this only starts in Generation 8, so it wouldn't apply for this solo challenge. It also has no effect on Taunt until Generation 6. Okay, so the rival is choosing Chikorita, and this first battle against him actually caused me to restart the run many times because Lickitung kept losing. I can't believe I'm saying that. The Chikorita uses Growl, lowers my attack stat, and then Lick is doing like 1 damage. Also, Chikorita can do decent damage with its tackles since my Lickitung is only level 5. I didn't try to level up prior to this fight because there's a mandatory heal in Mr. Pokemon's house. What I wanted to do was use PP against the rival's Chikorita, depleting both of my moves, and then resort to using Struggle after this battle. Because, unlike in Generation 2, where after this battle the game automatically heals your Pokemon, in Generation 4 there is no automatic heal. Normally I don't like to restart first playthroughs, but this is very early on. I haven't even got to the first gym leader yet. And the next portion of the game is still brutal. I have to go to the mart and purchase myself as many potions as are possible. That's 11 right now. I also picked up 2 more which were available in the overworld, and using these healing items, I am going to have to heal Lickitung and get to Struggle. This is a little bit more complicated than it might seem. I can't knock out any Pokemon on Route 29, so I have to resort to Route 30 in order to battle Pokemon like Spinarak, Caterpie, or Metapod. Metapod would be by far the best Pokemon to spam out my PP against, since it's never going to attack and only use Harden. Lick won't do much damage. I probably won't knock the Metapod out, but at least it would give me a safe opportunity to spam all of my moves. I really don't want to have to spam out my moves against Rattata or Pidgey, since both of them can do okay damage, and sometimes I can't escape because Lickitung is too slow. Now, while I perform this annoying task of getting to Struggle, I want to talk about Lickitung's move pool, because this is why it's a good Pokemon. Number 1, it gets Rollout at level 33, and once it learns this move, it will evolve into Lickilicky, its evolution, which I've always thought was a downgrade in terms of aesthetics, but I have more to say about that later on. Through level up, it doesn't really get much else that's very good. Defense Curl at level 9, which I need to avoid if I want to use Struggle. Knock Off at level 13, which feels like an insult because it has the same base power as Lick. At least it will be able to hit normal type Pokemon, but it's not going to improve my damage. I could slightly get an improvement to damage by learning Wrap all the way at level 17, because with the same type attack bonus, it will do slightly more, at least in terms of effective power, but this might round down if I haven't done more than the next integer in damage. So things are still looking kind of bad until level 21, where Lickitung learns Stomp. In the late game, it's going to get access to Power Whip, and that's really the only other notable move other than Rollout. Through TM and HM is where this Pokemon gets really good. Water Pulse, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Blizzard, Solar Beam, Iron Tail, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Earthquake, Return, Shadow Ball, Brick Break, Shockwave, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Rock Tomb, Rock Slide, Surf, and Rock Smash. Now, I am begrudgingly mentioning the last of these, Rock Smash, because I'm going to have to use it in the early game if I want to move with higher base power. I'm going to talk about the two available strategies to face Falkner in a second, but for now, we need to focus our attention on Struggle. This move has changed quite a bit over the generations, and Bulbapedia has a nice little chart to illustrate all of these changes. The main parameter that I'm going to focus on is the recoil damage. In Generation 1, it was half of the damage dealt to the opponent. In Generation 2, this was changed to 1/4 of the damage dealt, greatly helping Pokemon like Ditto, which require the move in solo challenges. In Generation 4, at first it seems like it's still 1/4 of damage dealt to the opponent, but it's not. It's 1/4 of the user's maximum HP. While Struggle does have a base power of 50, making it far more effective than Lick in the early game, and it is my only option to proceed, I'm gonna have to beat youngster Mikey, who has 2 Pokemon. At first it seems like this is gonna be impossible. If Lickitung deals 1/4 damage to itself every turn, then knocking out his 2 Pokemon will also cause Lickitung to knock itself out. In my solo challenges, I do not allow myself to proceed if my solo Pokemon faints and I make it through the battle with an HM user, so catching a random Pokemon and just putting it in my team in order to win is going to be off the table. The nice thing is that Struggle's damage rounds down. If my HP isn't a multiple of 4, I will be able to use Struggle 4 times without fainting, and then Lickitung will faint on the 5th use. I want to ensure though that I'm doing as much damage as is possible to the enemy Pokemon, because it would be nice to get through youngster Mikey with only 3 turns, allowing some wiggle room for him to deal damage to Lickitung on 1 turn. The issue is that training with Struggle is really slow, because I have to knock out 1 Pokemon at a time and then use a potion to heal my health, because it usually takes 1 to 2 turns to knock out the enemy, so Lickitung is left with half health after each individual wild battle. When I started this video saying this Pokemon is annoying, I meant it. It is so frustrating playing this early game. Although, I did forget to mention one TM. It learns Swords Dance, so as soon as I get to Goldenrod City, this Pokemon is gonna get a lot better. For youngster Mikey, I have enough potions to train until level 8, and this is the perfect level to fight him at because I haven't learned Defense Curl yet. If I went to level 9, then I would have to spam out 40 PP to get access to Struggle again, and that makes no sense. So let's see if the second trainer in the game poses a significant threat. He leads with a level 2 Pidgey. Lickitung goes for Struggle, and this move does enough damage to one-shot. Note that in Generation 4, Struggle no longer deals normal type damage, so it is not getting the same type attack bonus. Next, youngster Mikey sends in Rattata. I go for Struggle again. It does over half. Rattata does attack, but I have just enough health to survive the next hit with 4 hit points remaining and defeat youngster Mikey. With him out of the way, I'm gonna fight no other trainers on my way to Violet City. Although, I'm gonna mention one thing here when my mom calls me. Just so you know, we produce all these videos asynchronously far in advance behind the scenes. So I have just reviewed comments from my Sudowoodo video in HeartGold, and before reviewing those comments, I had fully filmed both Ambipom and Lickilicky. This means I'm at a little bit of a delay getting your feedback on how to improve my play. One of the pieces of feedback that I got on that video was that if you let mom save your money, she's gonna buy you useful items. I have been trained by Generation 2 to never let my mom save money. This is because it wastes more text every battle and she doesn't really buy useful items. Here's the list. It's mostly just a bunch of dolls as well as some healing items. I guess the one exception is a Moonstone, which is genuinely useful, and I'm sure the Snorlax doll is pretty cool. That is, if you're playing casually. I'm trying to go fast. I don't want my mom wasting my time with dolls. But in Generation 4, she won't. The items are Super Potion, Repel, Super Potion, Moonstone, Silk Scarf, Hyper Potion, Choice Scarf, Focus Sash, and Muscle Band. The Choice Scarf is the item that people wanted me to use on Sudowoodo since it boosts the Pokemon's speed by 50%. And with Lickilicky, it would actually be pretty good as well, because it boosts speed, my worst stat, and mostly Lickilicky is just going to be spamming Return. Although, since this is a choice item, it will not allow me to access Swords Dance, so maybe the Quick Claw is going to be the superior item for this playthrough. I'm not going to be testing the two though. Remember, I found out about this information too late. So thanks for helping me with all of my skill issues. Okay, Violet City, I'm I'm gonna stop by the Pokemon Center and heal up now. No more use of struggle for the remainder of this playthrough. Passing through the city as quickly as I can, I make my way to Route 36 to pick up the Hard Stone, which will boost the damage of both Rock Tomb and Rollout, and then I grab the HM for Rock Smash. Now, this choice comes with a major downside. Once I learn the HM move, I will not be able to forget it all the way until I reach Blackthorn City, and unlike in Generation 2, I will not be able to get there until I defeat all of the rockets in the radio tower. In Generation 2, you can actually go to Blackthorn City through Ice Path before you take on Radio Tower. This means that Rock Smash is going to be hanging around clogging up my moveset for a really long time, but it is going to have its niche uses here and there, but it'll create some other problems. Now, I did say I would talk about the 2 available strategies for Falkner, and I'll do that as I head into Sprout Tower to finish off this mandatory section of the game. As an alternative to using Rock Smash against his Pokemon, I could have leveled to 17 to get access to Wrap. The reason I know this is because I restarted this playthrough multiple times, so many times actually. Normally I don't like to do this in first playthroughs. It makes me feel a little bit guilty because I did restart Lickitung around 10 times. This run was so painful. Just getting a playthrough was absolutely awful. I lost so many times to the rival's Chikorita. I also lost several times knocking myself out because I didn't know how struggle worked in Generation 4. Then I made it to Falkner and I used the Wrap strategy, not using Rock Smash, trying to avoid the HM move so that I could use moves like Thunderbolt and Flamethrower throughout the next section of the game. This didn't work. It took me over 45 minutes to beat Falkner, and I actually deleted the footage because I was so frustrated by it. Anyways, so we can't watch that. I did it. It was awful. It just doesn't work. Then I came back, I tried Rock Smash, and it was so much better against Falkner. We also can't watch this footage because then later on when I was facing Morty, just inside the gym against a random trainer, I accidentally blacked out due to misclicking on one of my moves, and that took me back like 6 or 7 minutes in the playthrough. I got so frustrated at that point after the absolute hell that Lickilicky had put me through that I just walked away from it for like 3 or 4 days. When I came back, I proceeded to lose to the rival's Chikorita in the early game and restart like 3 or 4 times, and then eventually I got this playthrough. So why am I being so inconsistent? Well, I was honestly just acting emotionally. I could have resumed from replay during Morty's gym, but that really didn't feel okay. So in the end, I decided to restart from the beginning and just play the early game with a little bit more knowledge. During Sprout Tower, Lickitung has learned Defense Curl, and with Rock Smash, I have an answer to the Hoot Hoot. This move is also pretty good against the Bellsprout, which is saying a lot. It can drop their defense, it has a 50% chance, and if this happens, I'm gonna knock them out in less turns, saving a small amount of time. It's also quite helpful against the 2 Hoot Hoot here, and I do need help against them because they like to use Hypnosis to put Lickitung to sleep and then chip away at me. This battle against Troy's Hoot Hoot ends up being pretty close. After that, Elderly has the potential to be just as annoying, but this Hoot Hoot isn't. I knock it out, level up to 13. Here I put Knock Off in the place of Supersonic. You would think this move would be helpful to play around held items, but the gym leaders at this point in the game, specifically Falkner, does not have any held items, so it's a useless move essentially. I fight both the trainers in his gym for experience. This is going to be important for the next section of the game, not specifically for Falkner. Level 13 will be enough for him. His lead is a level 9 Pidgey. My fear here is that I'm going to knock it out over 3 turns and it will use 1 sand attack or maybe multiple sand attacks. That's how I'm going to lose this fight. If the Pidgey doesn't use sand attack, which is what happens here, then I knock it out for free and move on to the Pidgeotto. You might think, use Defense Curl to take less damage, but remember in Generation 4, Gust deals special damage. So setting up Defense Curl is just a trap. I did try it in my very first playthrough. It's not a good idea. The better idea is just spamming Rock Smash, because when the Pidgeotto eventually uses Roost, it loses its flying type and then takes super effective damage from this fighting type move. Because of this interaction, I'm always going to beat Falkner if I'm just spamming this move. Sometimes my progress also gets sped up by dropping his Pokemon's defense stat. South of Violet City, I am going to fight every single trainer here except the guy that has a bunch of Magikarp. I need to put the time in, because in the run where I lost in Morty's gym, I ended up getting stuck at Rival 2 for an extended period of time. The reason is that Lickitung's attack stats not very good, and I can't one-shot the Ghastly, allowing it to set up Curse. This is so frustrating. Also, I need good damage against the Bayleaf, and I just don't have moves that are going to cut it. My only solution to this problem is to level all the way to 21. Just outside of Union Cave, I pick up the Shell Bell. Inside the cave, I grab the TM for Rock Tomb, which is going to be fantastic against Bugsy, who's next. I teach it in the place of Lick, since Ghost-type moves are not very good in the early game. And Knockout is essentially a better equivalent. I fight all of the trainers inside of Union Cave to level up as much as possible. And then I realized that I had forgot to go to the Ruins of Alph, and I think there's a good reason to do it. I can pick up these 2 berries, which are occasionally useful, but I can also grab this rare candy. I could potentially use it at level 20 to go to 21 and get Stomp slightly faster, but I'm going to see if I can just get enough experience by battling all of the trainers and wild Pokemon that are showing up on my way. Now, fighting wild Pokemon in Johto, I like to complain about doing this because they're always at such low levels and they give terrible experience. This is another reason that Lickitung is so annoying to use. By the way, I recently played Lickitung in Pokemon Red, and it actually did really well in that game. Check out my Supercuts channel if you want to see a condensed version of the live stream to see how Lickitung did. After all of the rocket stuff inside of Bugsy's gym, it looks like Lickitung is going to get to level 21 before facing the rival. So now let's crush the second gym leader. Bugsy leads with Scyther. Rock Tomb does 4 times damage. Also, Scyther likes to set up with Leer and Focus Energy, giving me time to knock it out. From there, I clean up the Metapod, level to 21, put Stomp in the place of Knockoff, and then defeat Bugsy. By the way, it is actually possible for me to lose here because the Kakuna can poison me and I'm not able to knock it out very quickly. Bugsy also has a Super Potion. Thing is, my health is high and I was lucky the Scyther didn't attack. If it say went for Leer on turn 1, then U-turn, and Kakuna came out second and then it poisoned me, this all could have gone wrong. But in this case, I take a first attempt victory over Bugsy. Now, time for the rival. I want to fixate on a small piece of brutal math. Lickitung has 26 speed, and Ghastly has 27 speed. Also, the Bayleaf has 27 speed. If I was level 22 or 23, I would be moving first, or if Lickitung had just slightly more base speed. Anyway, the fact that I've overleveled still doesn't give Rock Tomb enough damage to knock out the Ghastly in one turn. I am hoping that it doesn't go for Curse, and in this case it doesn't, instead choosing Spite. Because of Rock Tomb's speed drop, I knock it out on the next turn and move on to the Zubat, which goes down to a single hit from Stomp. Now, time for the Bayleaf. This one's a bit annoying. I got some feedback on my Sudowoodo video that there's some ways to play around it. I could mimic a move like Synthesis or Reflect, and those are cool strategies for Sudowoodo, but Lickitung can't access them. Instead, I just have to Stomp and hope that I'm gonna knock the Bayleaf out. I could potentially set up Defense Curl on the Zubat earlier in the fight, and I kinda wish I had done that, because Bayleaf poisons me, sets up with Reflect, and then spams Razor Leaf, knocking Lickitung out. In the next battle, I take my own advice. I set up Defense Curl against the Zubat all the way to +4, and then I move on to the Bayleaf. Since Razor Leaf is dealing physical damage, it's not doing much, and I just need to hope that he's not going to spam too much Synthesis after using Poison Powder. He does use it once, but luckily for me, he just doesn't do it again, and as a result, I knock out the Grass-type starter. Finally, Lickitung has cleared the earliest portion of the game. Now we need to talk about the complications that Rock Smash has created for me. Once I reach Goldenrod City, I'm going to want to upgrade my moveset to include Swords Dance. It seems obvious that I should be running Headbutt and Swords Dance together for maximum damage, but I don't think this is a good strategy, so I'm going to be skipping Headbutt today. Stomp has 5 less base power, but it still has the 30% chance to flinch, and I'm not really going to be using it much longer. If I taught Headbutt, it would mostly just be wasted time, because Stomp is going to have enough damage, especially when paired with Swords Dance. And for now, I need to hold on to Rock Tomb so that I can actually damage Ghost-type Pokemon in Lickilicky City. While Lickitung does get access to Dig in National Park, this move won't be effective against them because they have Levitate. Inside the game corner, I play Voltorb Flip for a really long period of time. I collect a total of 45,000 coins. This is so I can buy every single TM, Substitute, Rest, Swords Dance, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower. And I also purchased the Silk Scarf to improve the damage of normal type moves by 20%. Now, I could potentially use one of the elemental moves against the ghosts in Lickilicky City, but I don't think this is the best choice since it can't pair well with Swords Dance. However, if I want to set up Swords Dance Dance, I need a way to play around Curse and Confuse Ray. And to do that, I purchased myself Substitute. So hopefully you're seeing the problem that Lickitung is sort of working itself into. It has Rock Smash on its set, and it only can learn 3 other moves. They have to be Rock Tomb, Swords Dance, and Substitute in order to get through the ghosts in the next section of the game. So for now, the only upgrades I'm going to make are Swords Dance and the Silk Scarf before facing Whitney. Clefairy's first, and there's a hilarious interaction that plays out here. It uses Metronome and rolls Swagger, which raises Lickitung's attack by 2 stages, but Own Tempo prevents the confusion. Lovely. Thank you for helping me set up faster, Clefairy. After I get to +6, I can just use Rock Smash to one-shot her lead and the Miltank. The only way I could lose here is if Stomp causes Lickitung to flinch over and over again. By the way, I could have played this fight with Substitute in the place of Stomp, keeping Rock Smash to deal damage to the normal types, but that's a little bit short-sighted since I still am going to need to fight trainer Pokemon before I take on Morty. With Whitney defeated, I head back to the department store and pick up the TM for Return. This is going to be my go-to move that I'll teach after I beat the Ghost-type specialist. Heading north of Goldenrod City, I run into some annoying trainers. The first one's Fire Breather Walt. He has Magmar, they have Flame Body, and Lickitung gets burned here, so I have to use Abra to teleport back to Goldenrod City to heal the status condition. I decided not to buy any healing items and I went north of the city again. Right now it's nighttime, so I bump into this policeman. He has 2 Growlithe, and they burn Lickitung again. Are you kidding me? 2 rare status conditions on the same route? Anyway, I go back to Goldenrod City one more time, and then I head into National Park, collecting the Quick Claw as well as the TM for Dig. The former is going to see a lot of play, but the latter probably won't get used. I crush Sudowoodo, taking out some of my rage for how awful that playthrough was, and then I head into Ecruteak City. I didn't think it made much sense to fight the ghosts now. Lickitung's level 26, and I think I can level up more in the Lighthouse and potentially get to Lickilicky before I take on Morty, which would be very helpful for my speed stat. Fighting all the trainers in the Lighthouse brings Lickitung up to level 29, so I backtracked to Route 39, fought some more trainers here, and leveled up to 30. I have 3 rare candies, and I'm going to use them now to go up to level 33. This allows me to learn Rollout in the place of Rock Tomb, which is slightly more frame efficient, and then Lickitung evolves into Lickilicky. Let's just pause for a moment and compare these 2 arts. I personally have always preferred Lickitung because it makes the tongue look much longer, and then Lickilicky evolves and its tongue gets shorter and all of its proportions just get kind of weird. Also, what's up with the Wi-Fi signal on its chest? I guess the little bib is cute, but I never really liked its awkward looking tail. I don't know, this never felt like a good upgrade to Lickitung, but I don't know what happened to my brain. Like, genuinely, as soon as it evolved into Lickilicky, I just fell in love with this thing. It's so silly. Why have I never seen it in this light before? Anyways, I actually really like this thing now. I did try to use it in my first playthrough of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but yeah, I didn't end up continuing using it. It's not very good when it's a part of a team. For base stats, we now have 110 HP, 85 attack, 95 defense, 50 speed, 80 special attack, and 95 special defense. The 50 speed is a 20-point upgrade over Lickitung's 30, and that should give me an easy way to combat the rival in Burned Tower. I teach Substitute in the place of Stomp, and then I go up against him. I'm now faster than his Ghastly, so I can use Substitute to block Curse and Confuse Ray. From there, I just set up Swords Dance, and then I use Rollout to quickly make it through all of his remaining Pokemon. I can apply this same strategy against all of the mediums inside the gym. So now, with over an hour of playtime in this playthrough, I have finally made it past the point in the game where I was previously. Alright, time to face Morty. He leads with Ghastly, but it doesn't matter because Lickilicky is faster, so I can set up Substitute, spam Swords Dance, and then use Rollout to completely destroy his team. The only way that this could go wrong for me is if somehow one of his Pokemon breaks my Substitute, or if I miss with Rollout. I think it would have to be a combination of those 2 things. I don't get unlucky here, so Lickilicky has defeated Morty. With him out of the way, I teach Return in the place of Rollout. I also contemplated teaching Dig or Thunderbolt at this point in the game, but in the end, I decided against it. Next, I had a choice. Am I going to go to Chuck's gym and fight the fighting type Pokemon, which are super effective against Lickilicky, or do I go to the Lake of Rage, forego getting Fly in the mid game, and fight Price first? I think Lickilicky is powerful enough to take on Chuck now, so I can do the more efficient routing. Here's some proof. all of the fighting types inside the gym are really easy to knock out. I take care of the Hitmonlee in one hit, the Machop, and the Machoke in one hit each, as well as the Hitmonchan. So now let's see if Chuck is just as easy. Primeape's first. It likes to use Double Team, and I know this, so I'm going to set up one turn of Swords Dance. I think this should be enough, and I was right at least against the Primeape. Lickilicky has the chance to learn me first, but I'm not going to learn this move, although Lickilicky is going to move first against the Poliwrath because it's quite slow, and with +2, Return does enough to knock it out in a single hit. So Chuck is defeated, and now I have access to Fly. During this section of the game, I started looking at the overworld sprite for Lickilicky, and it really looks like it's licking the player characters' little like ponytails that are sticking out behind me. That's a bit freaky. Red Gyarados, easy. All of the rocket trainers, also easy. Lickilicky is on fire right now, and so it melts its way through Price. Actually, it doesn't. I'm not using Flamethrower. I set up with Swords Dance, and then I knock out all of his team members using Return at only +2. Now we have arrived at Jasmine. There are several options that are available here. I need super effective damage against her Pokemon. I can use Rock Smash to do this, but it's got a low base power. The other option would be teaching Flamethrower and then using special damage against her physically bulky Pokemon. Or I could potentially pick up Focus Blast or Fire Blast. I don't think either of those makes much sense. I could also use Dig if I want physical super effective damage. There is a lot of stuff that I can do here, but I think that the most efficient thing is just not teaching any new moves and relying on Rock Smash. It's actually really simple. The Magnemites love to use Thunder Wave, so I can set up Substitute, block this status condition move, then spam Swords Dance as I have been doing this entire time, and after that, Rock Smash is going to do more than enough damage, making the Steel-type specialist absolutely trivial. Lickilicky only has one reset right now, but of course that wasn't my experience with it. It has restarts. That said, even with this one reset, in this playthrough specifically, the early game was absolutely brutal. But from here, the way is kind of cleared for it. At least that's what I was thinking. Petrol inside a Radio Tower is really simple because of the Substitute Swords Dance Return combo, but then after that I run into the Rival. I was just not thinking ahead and being a little bit overconfident. My current moveset has no moves that can deal damage to ghost Pokemon, so I'm not going to be able to knock out his Haunter. I think I maybe could have struggled through this fight if the Haunter was the last Pokemon to come out, but I didn't want to waste time that way. Instead, I just reset. I tried to go to Blackthorn City, and this is where I learned that you cannot actually go there in HeartGold. So instead, I'm going to have to teach a different move at this point in the run. Giving up Substitute makes the most sense, and right now, Shadow Ball should be enough to manage the Haunter. Without Substitute, I can't set up as confidently against the Golbat at the beginning of the fight. It could hit me with Confuse Ray, but it seems much more obsessed using Air Cutter, so I go for one turn of Swords Dance and then I knock it out. Meganium's next, Return one-shots. Because of its current effective power, Return is still the better choice against Magnemite, and I could have used Rock Smash on Sneasel, but either move is gonna knock it out. That leads to Haunter, and of course, Shadow Ball is able to one-shot. At the end of Radio Tower, I face Archer. In this case, his team's actually a little bit scary. I get burned by Fire Fang right away. Luckily, I still have enough damage to make it through all of his other Pokemon, and he only has 3 team members. If his team was like Petrol and he had 5 Pokemon, I think I would have lost here. Finally, at long last, Blackthorn City. I can use the move deleter to get rid of Rock Smash. Although, at this point, I don't really know what I would put in its place. For Claire, I'm going to be using Swords Dance and Return. I kind of wish I had earned enough coins to buy another substitute TM when I did Voltorb Flip. Going back and doing that now is going to be pretty inefficient because I'm going to have to level Voltorb Flip all the way from 1 to 8. Well, I guess I'll just face Claire with 3 moves instead of 4. Her first Pokemon is Gyarados. It has Intimidate, but I have Swords Dance to counter that out. I wasn't sure how many turns of Dragon Rage I could sustain damage from, so I went for 2 turns of Swords Dance, and Gyarados is faster than Lickilicky by 2 speed. This allows it to hit me 3 times before I knock it out, and Lickilicky is left with orange health, which definitely shook my confidence, because I'm not sure I'm going to survive the Kingdra's Hydro Pump. I am faster than both the Dragonairs, but she sends in Kingdra after I knock out just 1. Okay, moment of truth, how much damage is Hydro Pump going to do? And the answer is not enough. Lickilicky survives on red health and knocks out her ace. I clean up the final Dragonair and earn myself the 8th Johto badge. Inside the Dragon's Den, I conveniently get my 4th move when I level up to 49 and learn Power Whip. This move is fine, it has good base power but not very good base accuracy. There is one Pokemon where it actually has potential to be a little bit useful against, so for now I'm going to keep it. The Kimono Girls are next, and they're a series of battles that are particularly difficult for Pokemon that have setup moves. Typically these Pokemon make it through all of the other sections of the game at a fairly low level, and then they arrive here and their setup move really can't aid them. Luckily for me though, Return is just doing so much damage in a single hit that I'm going to be able to one-shot all of their Pokemon. The only exception was the Umbreon right at the beginning. Even the Vaporeon, which is pretty bulky, I can just knock out using Return. Alright, we're going to talk about a legendary fight now. I normally don't mention this in my HeartGold videos anymore, but I do need to battle Ho-Oh. I'm doing HeartGold just out of principle. I know that Soul Silver is actually a slightly faster game to speedrun. And speaking of speed, it's a real big problem against Ho-Oh because Lickilicky is slower than the legendary, so I can't escape the battle. I was so worried about this because I didn't save prior to Ho-Oh. I just figured I'd run away and then be fine, but no, I'm trapped here with it dealing damage to me every turn. Luckily though, after taking a lot of damage, Lickilicky is able to escape. In Victory Row to pick up the Earthquake TM, I'm not going to teach it right now though. The rival is really easy, I can just set up Swords Dance on his Sneasel, and Lickilicky is able to one-shot even the Magneton. So now it's time for the Elite Four. Will is first, and Lickilicky has speed problems here. It's slower than the Jinx and the final Xatu, but it outspeeds the other 3 Pokemon. I was concerned against both Xatu of them going for Confuse Ray and then me dealing a lot of damage to myself because of Swords Dance, but this is something that Lickilicky never needs to fear because my ability is Own Tempo. This is an example of me forgetting how my abilities work. This happens so frequently in these solo challenges. I'm so used to Generation 1 and 2 where abilities aren't a thing. Will sends in Jinx next. It goes for Psychic and doesn't do much damage. From here, I think I should be able to sweep. Maybe the Slowbro is going to survive a single hit, it usually does. But no, I knock out both the Executor and the Slowbro in single hits. The final Xatu comes in, and since Confuse Ray is ineffective, the only thing it can really do is attack with Psychic, and even with a special defense drop, Lickilicky just shrugs it off and defeats Will. Now, if you've been watching in the background, I want you to pay attention for this fight. At the beginning, I set up Swords Dance because the Ariados does not have Toxic. It does have Poison Jab, and so there's a little bit of risk doing this, but I felt fairly sure that it wasn't going to inflict the status condition, or maybe it would use one of its other moves. In this case, it does go for Poison Jab, but it doesn't poison me. I 2-shot the following Fortress, 1-shot the Muck, and then Crobat comes in. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Check this thing out. It's really fast, so it's moving first, and it sets up Double Team once. Return misses. So that's 1 miss. Return misses again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Crobat is now going for Wing Attack, slowly knocking us out. 8, 9, 10, 11 misses with Return, and then Crobat knocks us out with Wing Attack. This fight was absolutely disgusting. I cannot believe I missed that much. If I had just hit the Crobat once, I was sure that I was going to knock it out. And in the next battle, where Crobat doesn't dodge Returns infinitely, I do in fact knock it out with a single +2 Return. So, goodbye Koga, time to move on to Bruno. Remember when I said there was one Pokemon where Power Whip was going to be useful? Yeah, it's during this fight. The Hitmontop's just going to give me free setup with Swords Dance, so this battle is going to be trivial. His Hitmonlee is faster than Lickilicky. Hilariously though, it chooses to go for Swagger, boosting my attack stat more. Own Tempo counters the status condition, and then I sweep through the remainder of Bruno's team, using Power Whip to knock out the Onix. There ends up being a little bit of a pattern in the league. I win one easily, then I lose to a cheesy tactic. I win another one easily, and then I lose once again to another cheesy tactic. Shadow Ball is not able to one-shot Gengar, but then it uses Destiny Bond and takes down Lickilicky. This is not always going to happen though, so in the second battle when the Gengar attacks, I'm able to knock it out and move on to the Houndoom. But my health is fairly low and her ace is faster. It goes for Flamethrower, luckily Lickilicky survives and knocks out her most powerful Pokemon. The Murkrow does also outspeed, but I think it just went for Whirlwind trying to switch out Lickilicky because it is going for a lower priority move. This allows me to knock it out in one turn and then finish off the Vileplume. In preparation for Lance, I'm going to change up my move pool in a dramatic way. Thunderbolt over Shadow Ball and Ice Beam over Power Whip. With my current moveset, I expected Lance to be really easy. I go for Swords Dance turn 1, Gyarados is using Waterfall, doing an okay amount of damage, but I felt comfortable squeezing in one more turn of Swords Dance before knocking it out using Thunderbolt. Here's the thing though, why am I going for Swords Dance when I could just spam Thunderbolt and Ice Beam throughout this entire fight? I realized that as soon as he sent in his next Dragonite, because I'm just going to use Ice Beam here anyway. Lickilicky outspeeds this Dragonite because it has a speed negative nature, but the next two, the ones that come earlier in the battle, both know Thunder Wave and they're faster than Lickilicky. So the first of them inflicts the status condition before I knock it out. The next one, which naturally outspeeds, goes for Dragon Rush, causing a flinch, and because of that, Lickilicky gets a reset. I tried the fight again just spamming Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, but this is also not working because of paralysis. I can make this more consistent, but I could also just luck through with the status condition. In this case, I chose the consistent path since I think Lickilicky's late game is going to be pretty good. So I'm going to use rare candies now from level 56 all the way to 64, which gives me exactly 108 speed so that I can move first against the Thunder Wave using Dragonites. I knock them both out with a single Ice Beam and move on to the Charizard. Here, I get stuck with Lance using a healing item over and over again, with Lickilicky barely not knocking the Charizard out. Maybe I could have prevented this by using Return and doing slightly less damage or Ice Beam, but in the end it doesn't really matter. I still finish off the Fire type and then one-shot the final Aerodactyl. A 2 hour and 4 minute Lance split is pretty good, and Lickilicky only has 6 resets. Plus, I'm highly confident in its abilities during Kanto. Erica, easy, but I should have set up with Swords Dance at least once to make the battle a little bit faster. Sabrina, also easy, although she is attacking first. Luckily, the Espeon does not know Sand Attack like it does in Generation 2. Misty, simple. Lieutenant Surge ends up being one of the sketchiest battles in this section of the game because he paralyzes Lickilicky very early into the fight. Still, despite the status condition, I pull through with a victory on my very first attempt. Brock, I have Thunderbolt and Ice Beam. They give perfect coverage against his entire team. Blaine is probably the second sketchiest battle in this section of the game. I use Thunderbolt to knock out the Magcargo so I don't trigger Flame Body, but then from there I use Return for the Magmar and the Rapidash. The last of which hits me once with Overheat, inflicting a lot of damage, but Lickilicky still pulls through. Janine is easy, as she should be in these solo challenges. With 7 of the 8 Kanto gym leaders out of the way, now I have to face Blue. I was expecting this fight to be fairly difficult. I'm running the leftover so I can utilize Lickilicky's bulk to hopefully give me a little bit more sustain during the fight. That said, things end up panning out very well for me against the Executor. Unlike other Pokemon which take way too much damage from Leaf Storm, Lickilicky is taking about a third, and after the leftovers, this is decent for me. Also, the fact that he put me to sleep with Hypnosis allows me to stall out Trick Room and then knock out the Executor with +2. Because Trick Room is gone, I can then just one-shot the Machamp and never take a hit from Dynamic Punch, which couldn't confuse Lickilicky anyway, so it's less of a threat than it ordinarily would be. Arcanine goes down in a single hit. Intimidate is annoying, but +1 was still enough. I have Ice Beam for the Rhydon. It does survive. He uses a full restore, but then I roll better damage. Gyarados, I have Thunderbolt for, and the same can be said for the Pidgeot. I end up going for Ice Beam, but this inflicts a freeze. Hilariously, Pidgeot thaws out, uses Whirlwind, which gives it one free turn to attack Lickilicky when I switch it back in, but this doesn't matter. In the end, I knock out Blue's final Pokemon, and this battle was really straightforward. The League rematches start out very straightforward. Will's first Pokemon is Bronzong, which is defensive, so I can just set up Swords Dance here essentially as much as I want. Turns out 2 turns are not enough, because then the Bronzong after Reflect is just barely hanging on. This is just a time loss. After that, the rest of his team members are actually really straightforward. He sends in Gardevoir second, which I am faster than by 2 speed. After it, I level up to 73, getting Lickilicky to 123 speed, which ties his Jinx. I win the speed tie, knock it out in 1 turn, and then I crush his final Pokemon. With the Xatu outspeeding, but again, it can't do anything with Confuse Ray, so Psychic is its best move, and look at how much that did. Koga. I'm gonna reset here if he goes for Toxic on turn 1, but I'm expecting Dig, and that is what he uses. Because of it, I just sweep through his team at +4. The Crobat this time does not have Double Team, so it can't get cheesy against me. I one-shot it after it uses Fly. Bruno ends up being a little bit tricky. If I set up Swords Dance on the Hitmontop, then it can use Close Combat to do almost half. I didn't want to take more damage, so I start my sweep right away with +2. I'm faster than the Hitmonlee this time around, so it, the Hitmonchan, the Hariyama, and the Machamp are all one-shots, but the Lucario is faster. However, in this case, I move first, because it chose Counter, and the Steel type survives my normal type move, which was on +2, and then Counter knocks out Lickilicky. Okay, if I attack the Hitmontop right away, it could also use Counter against me. So I guess I need to set up Swords Dance twice here, and it is so lucky that I am able to survive 2 hits from close combat on 10 hit points. This presents another problem though. While I am going to knock out 4 Pokemon before the Lucario comes in, stacking up the leftovers healing over and over again, I won't have enough to survive a hit from Lucario going for close combat. And it is going to do that if my health is low. I tried again, hoping that the Hitmontop has a chance to go for Counter, and it does. This gives me free setup with Swords Dance all the way to +6. This time around I was only hit by 1 turn of close combat, so I'm going to heal to nearly full health by the time the Lucario comes in. What I'm hoping is that I can just barely survive a hit from close combat and then one-shot. But in this case, seeing my higher health, the Lucario chooses to go for Counter instead and return one-shots it. So Bruno's defeated, we're moving on to Karen. And this fight also proves to be slightly challenging. The Weavile at the beginning has Low Kick, which can do a lot of damage. Lickilicky weighs 308 pounds, making Low Kick's base power 100. I set up to +2 and then I started my sweep, but there is one more problem. She has a Spiritomb. I was hoping it wasn't going to go for Curse, but it does right away, and I'm not doing enough damage with Ice Beam or Thunderbolt to 2-shot. This causes 1 reset, but the solution is fairly obvious. I don't need Thunderbolt for Lance number 2, so I can teach Earthquake in its place. Now I have a move that is physical that I can boost with Swords Dance so that I can one-shot the Spiritomb. I'm just hoping that I can do that after only 1 turn of setup, and the answer is I can't. I'm gonna need +4, but I can get that on the Weavile at the beginning of the battle if I just sacrifice a little bit more health. And knowing that I'm gonna one-shot the Spiritomb, all of her remaining Pokemon do not have priority moves. The only threat is the Houndoom, which is faster than Lickilicky. I thought that it was gonna attack me and potentially get the knockout, but it seems like Lickilicky has just enough defensive stats and health that the Houndoom wants to prioritize Nasty Plot. This AI decision allows me to win. Okay, Lance 2, one of the most difficult battles in Pokemon HeartGold. Actually, I think it is. I'm going to use all of my rare candies prior to this fight to bring Lickilicky up to level 83. I really hope that this is going to be enough. Lance leads with Salamence. Here's the thing, its Dragon Claws aren't doing very much damage. I knocked it out right away using Ice Beam, thinking about the prior fight. I can then continue my sweep against the Ace Dragonite, knocking it out, and then Garchomp comes in. But it's faster than Lickilicky. It goes for Outrage right away, bringing me down to red health, and then I finish it. But Charizard after that I don't have a good move for, and it chooses Flamethrower. Lickilicky does survive, but the move inflicts a burn. Because of this, the status condition damage gives me a reset. Alright, I think there's a better way to approach this fight. I can set up with Swords Dance on the Salamence and just stall it using Rest, which I have taught in the place of Earthquake. It's a really weird run when you're only using Earthquake for a single battle in the playthrough. This takes time. The Salamence keeps getting critical hits, like a ridiculous number of times. Luckily, these critical hits don't do enough damage to make me fear as long as I'm just spamming Rest over and over again. Eventually, I'm able to attack and I knock it out, the following Dragonite, and now my health is green for the Garchomp. Because of this, the AI sees that it can't get the knockout under any circumstances, meaning it decides to go for Swords Dance instead of attacking. Because of this, Lickilicky's in a very good position. Both the Charizard and the Gyarados are going to outspeed, but they're both not able to do enough damage, so Lance 2 is defeated fairly easily. That leaves us with only one more battle against Pokemon Trainer Red. Going into this fight, I upgraded my moveset one last time. Attract in the place of Ice Beam, since this move is fantastic against Red. I use it right away against Pikachu, but the Electric Rodent is faster, going for Volt Tackle, which does more than half to Lickilicky. If I want to set up here, I need Attract to activate multiple times. Turns out there might be a better way to approach this fight. After 2 losses trying Swords Dance, what if I just use Return right away on the Pikachu? Will it have enough damage to knock it out? Well, Volt Tackle is inflicting recoil, giving me a better better shot, and Lickilicky is able to secure the knockout, which means Blastoise comes in next, and I think it's going to be far better to set up here. I can lead with Attract so that it's less consistent. It's already fairly inconsistent because Blizzard doesn't do as much as Volt Tackle was, and Focus Blast has a chance to miss. Stacking all of this stuff together gives me a far better chance of setting up successfully on the Blastoise, and I can use Rest here to potentially stall out both Blizzard and Focus Blast. I think there's a lot of upside to doing the fight this way. After just one loss, I get paralyzed on the Pikachu, but this really isn't an issue if I'm setting up on the Blastoise, because I can just use Rest here while it's fairly ineffective. Attract really helps me out. I set up to +4, and I was hoping this was going to be enough. I didn't want to push it too far and then lose because of a critical hit from Focus Blast, something like that. I knock out the Blastoise, move on to the next Pokemon, which is Venusaur. It goes for Sludge Bomb, poisoning Lickilicky. That's a bit annoying. I'm going to have to heal somewhere else. I decided to do it on the Charizard, and this ends up being an okay choice. Flare Blitz is doing a lot of damage, but not enough to knock out Lickilicky in 3 turns. If Charizard had got a lucky crit, I would have lost, but it doesn't. I knock it out, move on to the Lapras. I can take my time here, healing with Rest. It only really has Blizzard as a good damage dealing move. I finish it, move on to the Snorlax. One last question. Is +4 enough? And the answer is yes. Lickilicky clocks in with a time of 2 hours, 58 minutes, and 47 seconds. It just barely squeezed in under the 3-hour mark. It had 14 resets, 0 blackouts, finished the game at level 85, with a game time of 8 hours and 45 minutes. Before we rank it in the tier list, I just want to say, I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. It's a really good Pokemon that is fundamentally very annoying to play in the early game. Also, if I started fully evolved as a Lickilicky, it wouldn't really make the early game much better. It still starts with the same set that Lickitung had, and all of its level up moves come at the same time. That said, I was able to evolve into a Lickilicky early-ish into the playthrough, and it really did help, especially with speed. Unfortunately, for some of the other Pokemon that got Generation 4 evolutions, this will not be the case. Okay, how does Lickilicky stack up in the tier list? Well, it was nowhere near as good as Mewtwo or Ambipom. It also didn't quite get the same performance as a Pokemon like Feraligatr, but it was better than Heracross, earning itself the top position in the C tier. I gotta say, my internal drive for symmetry is really happy right now. We have 2 Pokemon in almost every tier. I guess I need to play a Pokemon that I think can get a B tier result and a Pokemon that I think can get an F tier result in order to balance things out. However, it's probably gonna end up being the case that those Pokemon will either be better than I expect or worse than I expect. Still though, Donphan is taking up a respectable amount of horizontal space. Thank you for making this graphic look very balanced at very least. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me and my team. You keep the lights on for us. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.